Adventures in Appraisal. Henry is filling in last minute for Jane Emile Wagler, who couldn't be here tonight. So we greatly appreciate his ability to put together a presentation very quickly. He's the Reno County Museum manager and is an American Society of Appraisers accredited personal property appraiser. His specialties include classic cars and firearms. Before returning to Hutchinson, Henry wrote for Hot Rod magazine and worked for Ford Motor Company. Most recently, he attended graduate school at the University of Colorado, studying public history. Please welcome Henry Platts.
Good evening, everybody. I just had an adventure in appraisals. Like Gay, oftentimes I'm called when things aren't going very well. It could be for estates, it could be for divorces, things like that. But the way I learned about all of these firearms was by attending and going to classes and visiting museums. I have a whole list of firearms collections housed all over the world. I've been to museums in Argentina, I've been to museums in Cody, Wyoming, and I use these books, very old books with tons of minutia, because there's millions of different variations of firearms. And it gets boring quickly. But these details make the difference between $10, $1,000, and tens of thousands of dollars. I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where they actually have a very extensive firearms exhibit, which you would think is unusual in such a liberal town as New York City. But these are the finest. And that's a Colt Dragoon from the 1800s, handmade. I go to high-end collecting gun shows to look at prices and see what things trade for and to train my eyes. This was a Winchester Model 21 that I was asked to appraise other ones similar to it, and so I was at a Winchester show just to get my hands and eyes on some of these Winchesters. You have to take them in sunlight. Inside you can't see blemishes or faults, so you have to take them outside. That's one of the big tricks to all of this. That's a Smith & Wesson, pretty common, and that's my dog Gunner in the background. Sometimes the guns come home, sometimes I visit people. That is Houston Whiteside Jr.'s Colt 1911, made in the first few months of Colt 1911 production. It's a very rare pistol, and I thought it was kind of applicable to tonight because it was the first pistol I ever appraised. That's the holster he got with it, and he wrote his initials in it and his name. So provenance also adds to the value of these objects, not only in my museum work, but also in appraisal work. That's the letter he wrote to whoever would find his collection of when he bought it and where and the serial number. He graduated in Dwight Eisenhower's class from West Point. And that was kind of like the dream team class. A lot of generals that ended up commanding in World War II came out of that graduating class. You can call Colt and other manufacturers and sometimes track down where your firearm was shipped and sometimes to whom. So sometimes for clients I will order these or I look for them when I go to appraise a firearm. I've ordered them for some of the stuff in our museum's collection, my personal collection, and other people. That's Ray Dillon Sr.'s 22. It was found in his basement when he passed away. And it's basically brand new. It came in the box with all the little hang tags and receipts and every little thing that came with it when he bought it. And nobody really knew he had it. So those are the types of things that happen, you know, grandpa's pistol in the basement. This is a pistol I found, a revolver I found in a mining museum in Colorado, and it's lacking provenance. You know, it has a story with it. But I wanted to contact the museum and see if they would want me to order a letter. Because a letter, one of those factory letters, will tell you if the gold is original, the grips are original, the engraving is original, those types of things. This was one of the stars of the collection at the Reno County Museum, a very, very original, complete Mauser, broom handle Mauser. It's in our World War I exhibit at the moment, and I had to appraise it and take it all the way apart, which is kind of like a Rubik's Cube. They're really complicated, and I was swearing in the basement. I also appraise antique cars, and so I try to find the finest cars on exhibit around the world so that I know how to compare them, to things I find in the field. This is a 1965 Jaguar that's at the Modern Museum of Art in New York City. It was one of the first cars ever put on exhibit in an art museum. That's what we thought was a 1903 Ford from AD Rail. Upon doing my appraisal for our museum collection, I found out it's a 1904 Ford. So it's worth about half as much as we thought over the years, so thus we can now lower it on our insurance. So Mary Grace is happy because the budget is better. This is actually worth twice what we thought it was worth. This is a 1941 Indian four-cylinder, very rare, iconic motorcycle, and has the wrong sidecar. I figured that out. So it's interesting, these sort of, a motorcycle isn't a motorcycle. Even if it's in our museum, we still had stuff to find out. The Amish buggy. I had to call Pennsylvania. What does it cost to buy an Amish buggy? That from Jaguars to buggies, whatever it is. That was kind of a fun thing. Luckily, it's not extraordinarily expensive, so we don't have to have any special insurance on it. That's a 1979 Super Beetle, the last year of the Volkswagen Beetle, like we remember them. And I've had to appraise many of those for people's insurance. A lot of people kept those. So it's kind of a fun, Herbie-like car. And sometimes you get called to look at really, really fun cars. And I had the privilege of getting to drive this one to make sure everything worked, right? So that's the last year of an air-cooled Porsche before they became water-cooled. And those have escalated tremendously in value lately. So people have been having to update their insurance and figure out what they really have. Land Cruisers have become really popular. That was one of the first cars I had to appraise. That person was lucky because they put a lot of money into it after they bought it, but the demand became so great for them that it sort of equaled what they had spent. So that was kind of a fun thing to discover for the owner. They thought they were underwater and they weren't. And then I got called to go look at another one. And this one was somebody else wanted to buy one, and they took my advice and flew me out there to look at it. So sometimes I do pre-purchase inspections. So I traveled to Utah and had to go up this really steep driveway, and I thought, I'm going to drive this old car that I don't know if the brakes work. I don't know if the transmission works. So that was fun. Yeah.